Hi, and welcome back to the podcast Wreckers. We are back. We're a podcast, and we're here to wreck it. Also, I'm Adam Aragon. Pleasure to meet you. I'd like to introduce our other host today. Go ahead.
Hey, everybody. Hey, you.
Hey, you there.
Hey, guy stuck in the escalator.
Hey.
My name is Stephen Thomas. I am free and unfettered.
Stuck in the escalator. Sorry,
That's what
I just
you look
got
like.
that.
Yeah.
I can't move. The escalator's not moving. It's just steps now. I wasn't prepared for this. Do I go up or down? Which way was I going? I don't know. I was letting the escalator decide. I'm sorry. I'm Matt Luff's mistake. I'm not stuck in an escalator. Although my performance was pretty convincing, I have to admit. And I'm sure you will too.
I was concerned.
I don't know why I'm live. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't know why I'm not letting Joe introduce himself.
Yeah, no, I thought I found a space right there.
Yeah, yep. There's never a space with me, Joe. Go ahead, and when you're ready, after I've finished speaking, go ahead and continue to introduce yourself. Okay. I'm done. Now.
I'm Joe Kroll, also Johnny Chaotic, and gentlemen, as far as temperature goes, this room is hot.
All right. We have a hot rating for Joe's room today. That's an important thing. We like to check in every episode. We usually
Sweat in my eyes, it stings.
For anyone wondering the scale, it's warm, then hot, then angry. And so it's generally
sometimes all three.
Yeah.
Sometimes it changes during the show. We're looking towards angry, fellas.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, for those of you that don't know, we are the Podcast Wreckers. We're here to talk about inane things. And we also do some improv, which, by the way, I've had a request to do more improv on the show.
Why?
From who?
But
my request
won't.
is why. Why would you want that?
We're going to do just as much as we normally do, but I just wanted to let you know the request was there, and we ignored it.
Appreciate the request, Coulter. Thank you.
Our number one fan has some feedback.
It's really easy to be a number one fan when there's only one person on the list.
Yeah. Shout out to our only one fan.
First and only number one fan.
Cole's been with us since the beginning, since our early days. He's always been there supporting, watching, rewatching even, he said. Judging. I don't believe him, but... Yeah. And never has anyone else ever joined in on the conversation about us. But Coulter comes up to us and tells us he's seen what we've made, and it makes us feel like we should keep doing it for some reason. Just him. He's just such a guy.
He's such a guy.
Yeah, he's such a good guy. I guess you could say he's a good guy. I don't know that well.
All right, let's play our first improv game. This is just kind of a scenes from a hat style thing where basically I'll give you a scene or a setup, and then you can act it out. If we have more than one take on it, go for it. You are a church group leader preaching the virtues of staying virginal while hiding that you're masturbating.
All right, everybody. Thanks for showing up today. I know it's early to get started with the Pray the Everything Sinful Away camp, but I just want to let you know, by being here, God loves you. Automatically, you've got a place upstairs. Anyways, sorry, I keep rocking this podium. I wanted to let us know what. Let's go ahead and go over the itinerary today. So first, we've got Jesus' beard. Jesus' beard onto our macaroni ducks that we made yesterday. I'm so glad that Jesus loves me. Jesus loves me. Okay.
Buzz, all right.
As he blows the podium away.
It just bursts into wooden shards onto I just want to, it would take a lot of extras and maybe $100,000, but I'd like to see just the reverse shot after that of just people covered in
just
like
200 pounds of Elmer's glue fired out of a CO2 can.
Entire Christian camp covered in Elmer's glue and wood chips.
Some guy's got a giant noodle Jesus, and he's like screaming, "Yeah!"
Look, I could see his face in the cum. Sorry.
Yes.
Today is a holy
It's so
day.
beautiful.
I want to see the dude walk away all tired. Well, power of Christ compels me to drink a bit of water, eat a banana, probably take a nap.
Oh, bless me. Oh, bless me.
All right, we could just do this all day.
Gotta tell you. Wow.
All right, I'm going to continue my habit here of just assigning these, so I'll give this one to Steven. Steven, you are the guy on the lifeboat who has terrible ideas on how to survive.
So, all I'm saying is that if we tie all of our clothes together, we all get naked, we tie all of our clothes together into one big rope, hear me out. Then we tie that one end to somebody's ankle. We let that person swim out to see if they can find land, but they won't get lost because they'll have the rope. They can come back.
Do you have another idea? Another idea? Some other idea than that one?
That's fine. Okay, so what if we build a fire?
Oh, in the boat?
Okay, sorry, got it. I appreciate feedback. I welcome it. I really do. Okay, so next idea. So.
Feel free to chime in, anyone else with ideas on how we can survive.
Gentlemen, we are surrounded by water. Look at all this water to drink. It's a little salty.
But that never hurt nobody.
All right, so I found a bunch of sandwiches. I went ahead and tied them all together into a spare raft in case anything happens to this raft. Unfortunately, they were eaten immediately by fish. And now we are surrounded by string and lunch meat. I am sorry.
All right, that's good enough.
Adam, I want you to do now, since you made me do it, I want you to do the same thing I did, only an evangelical preacher like Jim and Tammy Faye. And who knows what's going on down there with who? How about that? You can go ahead and make that interpretation yourself.
What do you mean, who knows what's going on?
It doesn't have, there's no specific... You guess what's going on down below the podium.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want you all to hear the voice of God today, and I want you to know that while I stand here behind this podium thinking beautiful thoughts about the Lord, less teeth on about the Lord, that all of you are special to me, very special to me, and I think that all of you should have a turn around, a chance to touch the Lord with me, And if you reach out and you grab God's hand, sometimes God, he grabs you back. And,
sometimes you gotta need that hand, just need it, right in between the squishy parts. You gotta give it a little twist and maybe a flick. You gotta give it a flick, God's hand.
Sometimes the Lord puts his thumb on your prostate and moves it in a circular motion.
The Lord's tongue is sharp today. It is slippery and it is all over the place. Hallelujah.
All right. This next
Grab
one is
the Lord by the scalp, hand.
Oh, sorry. This is in court, the complex legal argument for why you should be able to piss in public.
All right, the bladder, as we all know from Liar Liar, can be damaged. It was explained in a court of law by the judge played by. Does anyone know who played the judge in Liar Liar?
The guy from Herman's Head.
Yes, thank you. Yes, and Wing Commander 3, and I think that was it. That was his list of credits. But Herman's Head,
he did.
Are you citing legal precedent from a Jim Carrey movie?
I don't understand what your problem is.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we are all animals, and I do not understand why this is a jury trial. I'm simply trying to get it so that I can take a piss on a building and not be messed with. Come on, who's with me?
Now,
this is due to the excessive number of convictions.
If I were, say, hypothetically, I were at a playground, right? And I have to go, and there are people in the stalls, or the stalls are out of order. If I'm not facing the children, I mean, if my back is to the jungle gym, right, and there are no children within 180-degree view of my penis, I just think that would be in nature. Most animals would agree that is perfectly acceptable behavior in society.
All right, that's 5 years in jail. All right, next up.
I'd like to go for 10. Nick pulls down his pants and starts peeing on a child.
I live as I breathe.
It's called Pea Shield.
You try and lower your sentence so that you can do more on top of it. All right, down to 2 years. Now to have some fun.
I'm going to pee outside the prison. I'm going to pee inside.
You just pee on the whole jury, the judge,
So
the bailiff.
let me just get this straight. I want to write this down. So if I pee this many times, it equals how
this many people.
Yeah.
How
What's
many
the
do I
ratio?
get to work with?
How many have to be consensual?
Oh my. All right, so one last one here. Again, throw any ideas out as you have them. This is kind of a wild card. Fortune cookies that seem to know too much.
Watch out for that car.
What?
You will find new love after finding your wife cheating on you. Oh,
It's not working out.
They're under the bed. Go look right now. I'll fucking look. I'll prove it.
Let's see, this is not a normal itch. See a doctor. Seriously.
Talk to your son about oxycodone.
Tim seems so relaxed lately. I don't know. I don't think he has a problem.
He's been laying in bed for 3 days, not breathing.
You are attracted to them because it does feel right.
Shut up, Cookie.
You can't pray it away. You can't pray it.
just one after another. Can't pray it away. Can't pray it away.
I grabbed these from different stores. How can they all be this?
You are what you are. No!
You see the guy's son, he works in the kitchen and he's slipping little pieces of paper into the fortune cookies.
Ah, finally my revenge. All right, well, that was our improv piece. Thank you all for chiming in, being funny, or whatever it is you did.
Or we're sorry, you know?
I don't know what I did.
Art
I don't
is
know.
subjective, you
I
know?
made
Maybe-
apologies, and yeah.
Cover the whole gauntlet after every joke. All right, great job. And I'm really sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you, loved it, sorry, my
if you're,
bad.
if you're still watching and you didn't enjoy that, like, I'm not telling you need to keep watching. Like, if
Yeah.
you keep watching,
No.
I don't want you to hurt yourself. I don't
No,
want
no
you
one's
to be in a
making you
bad-
be here.
Yeah, please stop. For
You
my
can
sake,
go if
for
you
your
want.
sake.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Sorry,
we-
that was a
we
little
came
too
in.
funny. Let me explain it down a little bit so that we're all back to the agreeable sadness that we've all agreed upon.
Well,
All
everything,
right.
if you're not laughing, you just don't get it. You know,
Um,
you're not, you know,
Yeah.
the Rick and Morty rule.
Oh,
If you don't
yeah.
like it,
You're
just
done.
not smart enough.
Yeah. All right. So I had some notes here. I think from your
How dare
previous
you.
from a previous agenda here. I think this might have been from Steven, but someone just wrote down under the movie suggestions 1988's Vibes, starring Jeff Goldblum and Cyndi Lauper.
No,
Great movie. HBO
I've never even
summer
heard
classic.
of this.
no,
Oh,
I've
man.
seen. Yeah.
So lay it out for me.
It was one of those movies that was on HBO back when I was like 14. You'd have movies that would go on HBO for like the whole summer, where it just seemed like anytime you turned it on, yep, there's fucking Goonies again, or
Mhm.
there's Princess Bride.
Because
Or,
there was only 12 movies back then.
Well, not all of us had the money for HBO, Steven. Some of us just had to look for a side boob on USA up all night, and that's the best we had.
Silk
Tell us
stockings,
about what-
I remember.
This movie Vibes that every rich kid was able to access on their HBO whenever they
we
wanted.
had a black box, okay? You had to rub a little copper strip with a penny to make it work, but it works.
Back in my day, you had to rub a copper strip with the penny to get your movies.
No, seriously. We had an old black box or it wasn't a black box, I'm sorry. It was one of the original old cable boxes, and a buddy of my brother's figured out the hack to it. And so we had a loose cover on it, and you could take the cover off, and you could take a penny and go like, "Wah," on this little copper strip, and then be like, it's on.
Yeah, wow.
That was awesome. But yeah, like
Tell me about Vibes.
Vibes stars Jeff Goldblum and Cyndi Lauper, and
Why?
it is shot.
Was Cyndi Lauper ever in anything else as an actress?
Well, not after Vibes.
Gosh, that's a good question. And it was
Was that
shot
acting and girls just
mostly
want to have fun?
mostly on location in Peru, because it's set in Machu Picchu. And I think if memory serves, both Jeff Goldblum and Cyndi Lauper are like spiritual mediums, and they get contracted out to help this archaeologist guy who I can't remember if it was. Forgive me for not remembering his name, but the guy who played Columbo. I can't remember if it was
Peter Falk.
Andy
yeah,
Griffith?
I can't remember if it was Peter Falk who played the archaeologist who I think contracted them out to take them to Machu Picchu because they were like spiritual mediums who would help him discover a treasure or some shit.
Yeah, that's right. It's all coming back now.
It was like a goofy, campy, late 80s comedy. It had a lot of goofy romantic tension between Goldblum and Cyndi Lauper that the both of them just made as awkward as possible, but like in a pretty endearing way. Like, I don't know. I always really loved that movie because everybody in it just seemed to be trying their best and having an honestly good time. And like, but it wasn't like the greatest story or anything, but it was also like left field all the time. I was always attracted to like, okay, like Joe versus the volcano and shit. Like, I was always like, good, thank you, yeah. Like, get me off the fucking beaten path with just some crazy premise. That's
do
fine.
something
I don't
new.
care if it sucks.
Something new every 10 minutes. Yeah.
So, but what do you recall from it?
My memories of renting it as a probably 10 or 12-year-old was just I rented it multiple times just because I would pick up the box and go like, I forget if this is any good, and then I would sit and watch it.
Oh wait,
and because the box was very like it animated, it looked very fun, it looked cartoony or whatever. And then I'd watch it, and for whatever reason, maybe it was just too adult, some of the humor, and I don't mean adult like it was sexual or anything. It was just, and it wasn't even clever. I just remember not finding it funny.
Like East Coast sarcasm kind of humor.
Yeah, maybe
just
it
like,
went over my head.
This is getting tired. Yeah.
I was expecting more. So, like, I also used to rent with that Second Sight Detective Agency with John Larroquette and
Pierce Brosnan. The guy from Perfect Strangers.
Perfect Strangers. Bronson Pinchot.
Yeah.
And
none of that. None.
I recently like looked up Rotten Tomatoes reviews. It's like 0% for that movie, but I really? Watched it all the time. But I always thought that was funny, where Vibes was not funny to me. I guess it wasn't wacky. It looked wackier on the box than it was when I'd watch it as a kid.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Madhouse with Kirstie Alley and John Larroquette, also a movie with a very crazy 80s design box. And when you watch that movie as a kid, the movie's very all over the place, crazy, wacky, comedic, and like cat sniffs cocaine and then runs in 20 circles and dies, and then it keeps like coming back. Like, that was a fun gag. They keep thinking it's dead and burying it, and then it comes back the next day, and then it kills itself another crazy way. But it's like I kept expecting, I'd go like, oh, Vibes, I forget this movie, maybe it's good, I'll watch it again. And every time it would be like, this is not what I was promised by the box cover art.
I think it was attempting to latch on to kind of Indiana Jones-ish adventure theme. It was trying to be a couple different themes, but it was
Romancing
like
the
making
Stone.
it weak. A little more like that. Thank you. Actually, yes, thank you. Yeah. Honestly, that makes a lot more sense. I think they were probably just modeling themselves after that.
There was a John Candy movie. I'm trying to find it. It wasn't
like Uncle Buck.
The Volunteers with Tom Hanks and John
Volunteers,
Candy.
Where they go. They're in
and Rita Wilson too. Tom Hanks' future wife was like the
Peace
girl
Corps.
In that movie.
They're in the Peace Corps, and they go to Vietnam or
Yeah,
it was a great movie.
I don't think I ever saw that either. I feel like there's a big hole in my 80s movie knowledge.
I watched it like in the past 2-3 years just because I was like, I was on a Tom Hanks kick, and I was like, John Candy and Tom Hanks in a movie, and I've never seen it. And Rita Wilson, I like her. And I was like, maybe I could see the starting of Tom Hanks and Rita Wilson's romance, because I don't think they were even dating before that movie. So he was married to someone else, I think. But not very good. I remember going like, Tom Hanks isn't like, he's no Bill Murray, when it comes to like doing kind of a wacky comedy. And at some point, like, I seem to remember it has like fake subtitles for like fake Vietnamese. It like gets all wacky, like almost.
What's
like
the name of that again?
Zucker Brothers-y.
Volunteers.
Volunteers.
It skips between like taking itself seriously and going like super wacky. Like the tone is all over the place and it's mostly boring. That's my review of The Volunteers.
You know what I always think of when I hear about this movie too, because I think I've mentioned a few times, growing up in LA, there was a channel, KTLA, Channel 5. They would always put on like movies for a Saturday afternoon or Sunday afternoon.
Was that also an expensive service your parents owned?
So anyway.
Humble brag after humble brag.
We listened to it in the Porsche as we drove. Diamond driveway.
Poor guy's just trying to tell a fucking
Not
story.
my fault. Steven's like, it's not my fault you were all born so poor. And I asked to be
ironically, he's talking about public access TV.
I'm sorry, Steven.
Born poor, so I can
what
relate to
what would Gwyneth
man.
do in this situation? What would Gwyneth do?
As you clutch your crystal.
Gwyneth, save me. Gwyneth, give me the strength. Okay. Yes, you're right. They all have substandard diets. Yes. Right.
She says to soak your balls in vinegar.
And clutch your vagina stone.
Yeah. Keep saying, I rule, I rule. Volunteers was one of those. And also, do you guys ever remember a movie from the 80s called Losing It with Tom Cruise? All about losing your virginity in Mexico.
I don't know if I saw it.
It sounds familiar, but I can't think of it.
It was the weirdest effing comedy that used to come on all the time.
Screwball 50s, even though it was made in the 80s. One of those.
The 80s was in love with the 50s.
I'm
telling you. Nostalgia was huge
Just
in the 80s.
So speaking of movies, I recently saw one that I was very late to the party for, but obviously trying to avoid spoilers because like the whole point of this movie is if it's not spoiled, it's great.
It's called Birth of a Nation.
It seems like a real earnest film.
George Walker Bush's favorite movie. He's quoted as saying that.
No,
I'm pretty sure it's a documentary, and it was really well done.
I'm very late. I'm very late to the party, but has everyone here seen Barbarian?
Oh yeah,
Yes.
God, dude! I've been telling you to watch it since it came out, and you're like, I don't know if I feel like a horror movie.
I did. I finally felt like a horror movie. I did. I watched that alone.
That's exactly what he sounds like.
I watched that alone in the dark by myself. Yes.
With no idea what it was about.
With
right?
no idea what it's about. No concept
That's the way to go.
whatsoever. Other than there was an Airbnb.
Yeah.
And what I suspected it was for the first like half an hour,
I love
it was
that
not.
circumvention, like when a trailer circumvents what the actual movie is going to contain, and you're like, oh, I know what this is going to be, but it looks like it'll be good, and then it's like, no, it's not about that. That's the first 10 minutes. We just showed you.
And it goes,
here's a real movie.
So has anyone here not seen it?
I haven't seen it. I don't want it spoiled because it looks awesome, but I do have a question about it. Because I haven't seen Justin Long do anything satisfying since Galaxy Quest.
He's pretty good for what role he's trying to play.
Thank God, because I really liked that guy back in the day, and then something happened where like he was getting no parts, and then the parts that he did get, I was like, ugh.
Joe, is there a movie or show you've seen lately that's caught your interest or got you fired up or disappointed or semi-hard?
What gives you a happy?
Where do we fall on the Chubb spectrum of movies?
What gives you a bored Saturday afternoon? All right, fine.
I'll watch Kim Cattrall and Mannequin one more time.
You could have just stopped at Kim Cattrall. That was amazing.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Barbie. Apparently, that's really good.
I've been wanting to see it since it came out. Yeah.
I saw that at the drive-in theater, which is fun.
Nice.
But yeah, no, it was solid. I will say, like, I was with my wife and her friend, and they're obviously like they're both female, and they were much more deeply impacted by it, like and understandably so. Like it's very like women-centric messaging,
and I can't relate to or empathize with women, so I don't know what they were.
I was going to say, despite the fact that it's very women-centric, and despite the fact that it speaks very loudly and clearly to women, I still really enjoyed it, and thought it was very well done.
Did you wear a pink shirt?
I enjoyed it because it wasn't meant for men.
Did you wear a pink shirt?
I'm not playing your dangerous political spin game. Well, yeah, a lot of people like hate it on principle because it is just so steeped in femininity, and you know. that has a giant pink palette. And you know, I don't know. I actually pointed out when we watched the movie, I said, you know, when I was a kid, I had 3 sisters. So they outnumbered me by far. So I had more Nancy Drew books than I did Hardy Boys. And we had more Barbies than I had G.I. Joes. So often G.I. Joe had to recruit Barbie to get into the battle and fight with He-Man's minions.
Come, giant woman.
Toughen her up. Get her in some camo. Make her a man.
The size is G.I. Joe.
Yeah, she's like an Amazonian
Amazon warrior. She's just all, I will destroy you all with my pointy toes.
And then all my Predator figurines and my WWF action figures, Hulk Hogan would jump on top, and they...
and then she'd do the splits, and they'd all fall over. Yeah.
For a long time. Over and over again.
But yeah, I don't want to ruin anything about Barbie for anyone. It was good. It was fun. It was enjoyable. It definitely had some messaging. And it, you know, I think it was totally well done.
You didn't do the Barbenheimer experience. You didn't do the back-to-back like everybody says you have to.
I can't get
Dark
up to
Side of the
movies
Moon and Wizard of Oz, where you only really understand Oppenheimer once you're coming out of Barbie. And then if you watch them in the reverse order, then you see it get a whole different message. You're made in conjunction that way.
If you get a splitting headache, you're doing it right.
Yeah. If your eye bleeds a little.
You'll wake up so much smarter the next day. Okay.
Matlock, any movie suggestions for the folks at home?
Well, in place of one movie suggestion and talking about one movie, I'll just say I have a new friend, and he's younger, and he's been exposed to actually a lot of good movies. Like The Jerk is one of his favorite movies, right? But obviously, young people, they're not going to search out all the classic movies. So,
yeah, they're terrible.
So what I've done is I've created a list of things to suggest to him, and I'll read you that list. The first thing I showed him was Freddy Got Fingered, because that is probably the most important movie that I can show him. And Little Shop of Horrors were the 2 starters. It was like, you need to be my friend. You need to. It's my litmus test for friends. What are you saying?
So this is Matlock's recommendation list.
Yeah, and feel free to put them on the screen.
I'll put it on screen as you do it. Yeah.
You'll love this first one, Kids in the Hall Brain Candy. Okay.
One of my absolute favorite movies of all time.
All right. Last Man on Earth is a great show. I recommend at least watching the pilot. The pilot itself is just even if you don't watch the rest of the show, it's an amazing.
Is that the Will Forte?
Will Forte, Will Forte.
Yeah, that was good. It was an awesome show.
Yeah. Happiness by Todd Solondz with Philip Seymour Hoffman, I think, is one of the greatest dark comedies and one of the darkest great comedies.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's one of the darkest comedies.
Yeah.
Can I quote a line from that movie?
Yes.
It's okay if you're a lesbian. I like lesbian.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's a great line. Here's the best line, though, delivered by John Lovitz. You're shit and I'm champagne. Okay.
Okay.
By the way, the beginning of Happiness, that's, if you just watch that, just Google that John Lovitz scene, it's the opening of Happiness. It's one of the best
the end of the
moments.
And
it starts out with him crying and you don't know why. And she's breaking up with him. And then he's bought her this really thoughtful gift, expensive gift. And he gives it to her. And then she's like, I'll always cherish. And he rips it away. He says, no, you won't. This is for the girl that loves me. And then he rips it. It's so oh my God.
All right.
Anyways,
so continue with Matlock's list of movie recommendations.
I'll just shoot them off now, okay? Hudsucker Proxy.
Awesome.
Hey, yeah.
The Man with Two Brains. If you love The Jerk, it's almost as good. Same writing team. Yeah, right? I mean, immediately it's a great movie if Charles Grodin's in it. Firewalk with Me, Twin Peaks. The entire experience, Firewalk with Me and Twin Peaks. But Firewalk with Me in my top 5 movies of all time. Swiss Army Man. If you liked Everything Everywhere All at Once, and if you haven't seen that, watch it. And if you liked it, Swiss Army Man. Evil Dead 2, Army of Darkness, and maybe Ash versus Evil Dead is fun as well. I'll go triple time. I'll finish up my list and we can move on, okay? Beavis and Butthead, Dirk Gently, True Stories, Barton Fink, Nothing But Trouble, MTV's The State, Reno 911, All of Me with Steve Martin and Lily Tomlin, Basketball, Orgasmo, and Cannibal the Musical, Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, one of my favorite sitcoms of all time, Space Cop by the Red Letter Media guys, Deadwood, The Amazing Show, Cocksucker, The Dark Crystal, the movie and the show, Marvelous Miss Maisel, Top Secret, Airplane and the Naked Gun, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, The Jerk, MST3K, Nurse Jackie, Neil Breen movies, and Don Hertzfeldt animations.
I did not expect the list to be that long.
I literally, all we do is like YouTube shit and go like, oh, I got to show you this, and oh, I got to show you this, and the whole time I'm writing down shit to like eventually like show it.
It's fine. It's an excellent list. It just I thought it was more like a top 10, but it turned into quite
a top 100. You know.
Yeah. All right,
so,
cool.
anyways,
you
can
forgot to
all that
add,
if you want.
You forgot to add anything starring Richard Jenkins.
Who's Richard Jenkins?
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. That's his specialty, blending.
Oh.
All right, so switching from movies to games, I know most of us have been playing Baldur's Gate 3.
What do you think, Steven?
I think Richard Jenkins was amazing in a lot of
Baldur's Gate
things.
3.
Son of a bitch.
He was in Flirting with Disaster, an old 90s movie.
I love that movie.
Yeah, he was the one who said, "Can't catch the wind," as he was tripping on acid.
Is that the one where Lily Tomlin does acid, like while her kids are visiting, or like
Lily Tomlin
microdoses?
No, Lily Tomlin and Alan Alda play people who make acid, who live in the middle of New Mexico, and Richard Jenkins plays the gay FBI agent who's in love with his FBI agent partner, and he's the one who gets the son Lonnie. Accidentally doses Richard Jenkins' chicken with acid when he was supposed to dose Ben Stiller's chicken. Because Ben Stiller goes to them saying, like, "You're my real parents. I finally found you." And like the kid Lonnie, that is their other kid, is like super jealous. So he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna fucking dose you out of your mind." But then the FBI agent eats it instead, and he's like, "Is it hot in here? It's really
That's a great scene.
hot in here." And he starts taking off all his clothes, and they have to like try to calm him down. And then like by the next day, he's like running through the desert with his tie tied to his head, going, "You can't catch the wind." It's so great.
Adam, were you the one who told me you dosed or was it you or someone you knew like dosed a police officer by putting acid on like the inside of their car door handle?
Well, that's not
I
cool.
had heard that story, but I don't know that I actually know someone who did it or not.
You don't know that you did it? Okay.
Yeah,
That's evil.
For legal reasons, I do not know what you're talking about, but it was great. Anyway,
great idea, great story.
I do have a good story about acid.
What do you think?
I was at a rave one time, and there was someone had a vial of acid. And they do the eyedropper thing where they like give you a drop of it, you know,
in your eyes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you can. I mean, it doesn't really matter. You can do it in your mouth too, if you're not an insane person. But yeah, so this guy had a vial of acid, and he was a big group of people had centered around him and given him a bunch of money, and so he was just handing it to everyone who was handing it down the line, and everyone was taking a drop from it, and they were trying to kind of be surreptitious, so like doing this. And
Did
so
someone squirt the whole dropper full or something?
It gets around to this one kid who didn't know what was going on, and he just pulls the dropper out and sips it.
Oh
no!
Man. No. He must have taken about 20, 25 hits.
Wow.
Probably. And the entire group froze. Like 18 people just went like,
and they all slowly walked him to a hospital.
Yeah. No, and so
now.
So the guy whose it was is like, "Oh my God," and he ran over and he took it back from him and he like put it away, and then he grabbed the kid by the back of his neck and just hauled him off. And a couple of us followed, like, "What's going on?" He took him to a faucet.
That's
and
not
just
what you want
rinsed
when
out
you're
his
on
mouth.
acid. Someone grabbing you and pulling you off.
Yeah, this guy was like an expert drug dealer because he knew what to do. So he took him to a faucet and immediately like rinsed his mouth and like spit, swallowed his spit, and like try to throw up, like get it out of your system, like.
Oh,
and
wow.
so he probably saved that kid's life. However,
he did not have a good night. Still,
we ended up taking care of that kid for about 9 hours. While he went through the ballsiest, biggest trip I've ever seen in my life. And at the end of it, like the rave was over, this kid was still high, and we're like, none of us came here with this guy. We don't know him. Like, I feel bad, but like, we did what we could. And so he dropped him off at his house. He lived with his parents.
Oof.
So he had to do the walk of shame.
Right.
At a 45-degree angle.
My God.
Here's Here's what I suggest someone do. If you see that happen, you walk them to a hospital, you say, lay down here and just say help until someone comes, and then you run.
Help, help,
Help,
help,
help,
help.
What's wrong? I don't know. I don't remember. Help.
Yeah, they'll figure you out eventually.
Oh, dear Lord.
Can you add?
That's so frightening.
If you can, Adam, would you add like AI images of somebody on way too much acid?
On 25 hits of acid?
Yeah.
Dear Mid-Journey.
It's like asking Santa for presents. Dear Mid-Journey, I have been a good programmer.
and here's that now.
AI art?
Well, I was shifting it over to video games, and I just was curious if, like, your favorite highlights, bugs, weird experiences, things you didn't expect from Baldur's Gate 3.
Steven, you go first.
Richard Jenkins has a storied career.
Fucking despise you.
I kind of want to ask, like, what video games, and I think anybody could answer this, what video games should you not play on acid?
I mean, a lot of anything story-driven
that you've played.
You can play Tetris all day long, but don't play, like...
I don't know about Tetris.
I could see, like, Stardew Valley fucking you up really bad.
Yeah.
Tetris would be perfect. It would keep you focused because it's something that you could do distracted. Somebody could be talking to you and you could be like, yeah, I'm still playing Tetris, no problem, and I'm still killing it. So,
but don't play like Ace Attorney or...
Right. Yeah, nothing that needs like so much engagement. You would want something that's rote because I feel like, especially if you were like going into a bad place, something kind of a rote activity like Tetris would help level you a little bit, help ground you, kind of. Whereas something else, you're like, oh, I have to answer questions, I have to interact, like that's too much.
So it's kind of subjective what the best acid video game would be, but I did have a follow-up question that's more for everyone, which is what's just the first game you've played that blew your mind? That like, holy shit, the future is now.
Mm-hmm. Baldur's Gate 3. What can I say?
Yeah, I mean, honestly,
this is sponsored by Larian. Everybody, Larian is going. No, I'm kidding.
I'm giving us $8.
I have had that moment, like playing Baldur's Gate 3, where I'm like, this is, if we can make this like a benchmark. And then just the way the game was developed is the way that I think most art should be developed, where it was like a perfect storm of nobody giving them like an exact deadline, letting them like have as much time and as much money almost as they needed to develop and make it like a perfectly rounded, perfectly like complete and like you don't need add-ons or anything. It's an amazing long ass game with tons of things to do, so many different variants and everything to keep things interesting and make it replayable.
Don't be evil.
One of those, Zelda. Yeah, there's a whole second half of the game you're missing, but just don't be evil.
Zelda was my first like top-down game and my first like RPG kind of quote unquote like. Mm-hmm. So yeah, Zelda for me, like I don't know if it blew my mind at first, but I just slowly realized like, oh, this is a much bigger, deeper game than I'm used to.
Yep.
When Ocarina of Time came out, that was like incredible with 3D Zelda and everything. So like when I was playing that as a kid, I was like, this is it. We're here now.
Right.
We're at a new stage.
I'm a big fan of hand-drawn animation. Like Don Bluth, The Secret of Nim was one of my favorite movies as a kid. And so when I played The Curse of Monkey Island, to this day, I think it holds up where it looks like you're playing a cartoon. Like everything in it, the what you're doing, all the animations they did for it, hand drawn, like on. It's pretty good.
That's the one that's done like in full blown like hand drawn animation style. That was great. I think like that was the first time I felt that they mastered like cartoon in game. Like where it still feels like a game and not a cutscene, but it still looks like hand drawn.
Hey Steven, you had something before I cut you off?
No, I don't think so.
He said
sorry about that.
I wanted to answer the previous question.
Yeah,
I just wanted to say, if you're into Stardew Valley, maybe don't try acid for the first time playing Dead by Daylight. I would think that might be a game that if you're on acid playing it for the first time, and Jason or like the alien from Aliens is chasing you.
Any zombie or murder game is probably low on the list.
But you know what? Don't take my word for it. Do acid tonight.
You know
Buy
what?
the game. Try
you know what?
it.
Defy me.
Tell me in the comments whether you survived the night or not.
Baldur's Gate 3 is what platform is that on?
PC
so it's been out for PC for the month. It's coming out in about a week, I think, for PS5.
Okay.
And then later this year for Xbox and some other things. Probably.
Never for Switch.
It
might come to Switch. Their last
someday.
game, Divinity Original Sin 2, was very similar, and it was a great, fantastic game. And that, I believe, is available on Switch. So look at
How long
Divinity
did it take
Original
to come
Sin
out on
2.
Switch? Do you know?
It took a while.
It takes a while.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Nintendo is typically the last to kind of get on board
the last
with
platform.
that kind of shit because they're so proud of like all their own,
Well, all their own stuff is also
Baldur's
very
Gate-
low impact kind of on your system. A PC game like Baldur's Gate, it looks beautiful, so you need a really high-end graphic card. So even to put it on a PlayStation, they probably have to downgrade it a little bit from a high-end PC.
Yeah, I'm sure it's toned down a bit. But yeah, if you have a Switch and you like the bones of the game, the framework, the combat, the way that it works is like 110% built on Divinity Original Sin 2. So there's Divinity Original Sin 1 and Divinity Original Sin 2, but I think 2 is really the fan favorite up until Baldur's Gate.
Yeah,
Regardless,
so
here's
try
the
that.
story.
incredibly similar to like Zelda. Like I'm just looking at the website for Divinity Original Sin 2, all like the characters and the
Right.
It
elements
does
and
have
everything like that.
turn-based combat. So you like.
Can I just jump in real quick with the
That's cool.
The quick history of the game is this company approached Wizards of the Coast, who's made Dungeons and Dragons for the past 30, 40 years, saying, can we make a Dungeons and Dragons game? 10 years ago, they went to them. And Wizards of the Coast were like, prove to us you can do it well. So they made Divinity Original Sin, and they couldn't use the property or any of the licensing from Dungeons and Dragons, so they pretty much had to make their own Dungeons and Dragons lore and creatures and all that stuff.
It was like their proof of concept.
Sure. Yeah. And then within like a year or two, they made Original Sin 2, which was even better, and it was like highly praised. And then Wizards of the Coast came back to them like 7 years later and were like, do you still want to do a Dungeons and Dragons game for us? And they said, yes. So they gave them pretty much license to use everything from Dungeons and Dragons for the first past 30 years, build a game that uses the same kind of turn style, dice rolling,
the exact
RPG,
spells,
the exact rules and spells and everything. So
that's
it's
what
like
Baldur's Gate 3 is?
Yeah,
it's pretty much. It's an unfortunate
rigid
title for Dungeons and Dragons, the game.
It's rigidly based on the actual rules of D&D 5th edition.
Yeah,
I've never actually played Dungeons and Dragons except for one time. I played in college and I got weirded out in about 20 minutes and took off. I was like, I have to go.
It's always hard.
We should do a one-shot on the show.
Visualizing all the stuff, and you're not as into fantasy elements. It's like hard to learn and hard to get into. But this is like a very good visual way to, like, Vanessa, my girlfriend, has the same issue. I can't like visualize all the stuff, but this game like visualizes it for you and gives you all the rules. You don't even have to have them explained to you. It just all works the way it should.
I honestly think I'm the type of person who could be open to it and could work with it just fine. I think the circumstances, it
takes a lot of investment. It's hard to get 4 people together like on a weekly basis to keep continuing a campaign.
Generally, if you're looking for a game, you're going to have to be the one that starts it and runs it. Right. So that's what happened to me. Like the first game I started playing, I was DM. So like literally the first D&D game. Like the first game I played in, I was running, and I've mostly run games since then. But I will say, like, I came into D&D late. Like I played it like maybe 20 minutes in high school, like what you described,
Yeah.
And it was fun, but like I never got into it. So I got into it about 5 years ago, and I do have to say, like, I am super duper hooked and addicted, and I run a couple of games simultaneously and have for the last couple years.
Nice.
Yeah, it is fantastic fun. It is the grown-up version of Pretend.
Yeah.
That's why it's good.
Yep.
Brings you back.
And
I hear a lot of the same thing from a lot of people at my work that are into Magic right now. It's the gathering aspect of it that people really celebrate the most.
People who aren't into Dungeons and Dragons,
and yeah, people who are all kind of like-minded and into fantasy type of stuff anyway get to hang out for hours on end, just talking about stuff, and then they get to play this game while they're doing it. So
even if you've never played or have no interest in Dungeons and Dragons, like and people who didn't even know it was Dungeons and Dragons are loving this game and going like, holy shit, like I didn't even realize that's what it was. So it's really like, I mean, it's one of the biggest games to come out and like a real leap, but it's because they had 30 years of a developed property to work with, right? Like every piece of lore that's been developed and all the books from Dungeons and Dragons.
It's like the deepest history you could ever ask for a game, right?
And then people like bought it before it was out, so it had all these beta testers, people playing the game as it was being made, telling them like, years. I don't like this, I like this. For like 3 years, they developed the game with the help of like a beta testing community, including me and Adam. You know, we didn't really chime in, but we tested it and we played it as it was being built.
I'll include Joe as well. I know he was part of that early access debacle.
Yeah, but it was 3 years of going like, when the fuck is this game going to come out? It's been 3 years now. Is it ever going to come out? They keep like working on it, but really it was like that whole time they were taking their time. They were listening to people who were going to play the game and developing it. Plus, it had such a big support of like community support that they were like, well, we got to make it really good. So they took their time and made it really good because they knew it had a ton of people.
It took 6 years of development, hundreds of millions of dollars. It has like J.K. Simmons and Jason Isaacs as voice actors, like premium.
That's impressive.
Hollywood grade actors.
Who does J.K. Simmons play? I didn't even realize. I remember hearing that. And I forgot.
Ketherick Thorne.
Oh, cool! Oh my gosh!
Knew it.
Yeah, the necromancer, awesome. The necromancer lord guy.
That's awesome.
Is J.K. Simmons.
He's got some lines, man, which are some deep shit.
Oh, they're great. Yeah, and Jason Isaacs. I couldn't figure out who he was. He's the other guy in that trio, the Orpheus or whatever. Like not Orpheus, the Anyway, in the trio with Ketherick Thorne, there's Orin is the female one, and the other guy,
Archduke Gorthak,
something like that. Yeah, Gorthak. Anyway, so that's
actually from the Coneheads. I think that's not
Jason Isaacs.
Jason Isaacs is he was the captain in Star Trek Discovery for a season or two.
Mm-hmm. And back in the day, he played the villain in a few things.
Yeah, he's done a lot of good villains, and he's kind of a villain in this too. But just amazing level of detail, dedication, time. Speaking of which, we
gotta wrap up. Not a single bad voice actor either. Oh
I didn't see one line where I was like, oh, they did film that in.
And they populate a city in Act 3, so like you're walking by tons and tons of just random people that you can actually talk to, most of them, and they say something, and then they're just like saying random dialogue. It sounds like you're walking through a city, and people are just
and no matter who it is, no matter like the fine, like some dude in an alley somewhere, you click on him. Not only does he have a voice line, but he's also motion captured, and it shows like a close up of that character saying the line.
Yeah.
So it's not even just like playing it. I mean, it's like you see the actor saying it. I just read an article about that.
Body motions were motion captured.
I don't know about body motions, but all the voice acting was also motion captured.
Yeah. My last point, I just want to make a final point on it, and that is that because they had 6 years to develop it, because they didn't have, most games would have like a 1 to 2 year deadline max, and Electronic Arts or whatever coming down on them going like, work more hours, work harder, work faster. It needs to be out by this date. Now we've pushed it back. Now we've pulled it forward. It needs to be out sooner. Cutting budgets and firing people left and right. And in that environment, you're not going to get a piece of art that was created by people who care about it. And especially when you have a bunch of like suits saying like, well, it should appeal to this crowd and this crowd too. And make sure that you cut out this, in Baldur's Gate, you can be completely nude. You could run around the game completely nude if you wanted.
I have penis C.
And by the way, Baldur's Gate 3 is the horniest game I've ever played.
You can bang just about every companion in the game.
There's a sex speed run, which is about 3 minutes 23 seconds.
Wow.
To get to laid.
I did it.
And you can have sex with a bear, and that's great. But my point being, most art should be made with
your thing in the chat. Yeah.
That should be what all art should be. Every movie would be great. Every show would be great if it was like given to the creators and like they got to have as much input and time as they wanted. Obviously, deadlines are great for getting shit done. You don't want to just work on it forever and never put it out. but it shouldn't be controlled by people who are not creatives. The deadline shouldn't be set by non-creatives.
That the one other game that has been in development for, I think, 8 years, coming out early access tomorrow, is Starfield.
Oh, it's not early access. It's full release.
I thought it was early, and then it full was like September 5th or something.
I was pretty sure it was full release.
I think it's early for 5 days and then full.
I think it's early.
Maybe
early
just PC pre-order. Like, I don't think it's out tomorrow for consoles. Anyway,
tell me and Steven and Coulter out in the audience about Starfield, because I'm not really interested.
I'm not really interested. Well, we got to wrap up here in a minute, but I'll just say it is done by the same group that did Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim, Fallout 3, Fallout 4. So the people that brought you those big, giant open world games. Yeah, yawn.
Steven and I will be napping over here. Let
us unrelated.
It's their first new property done in like over 20 years. And it basically takes that formula of giant open world games to space. There's an entire part of ship-to-ship combat, of ship building, base building, world traversal.
There are a lot riding on it. Riding on it.
Yeah, there's over 1,000 planets that you can visit, and they're procedurally generated, so that you can go to each one and explore it. Some of them are empty, but some of them are cool. But yeah,
it looks pretty cool. So it's like No Man's Sky, where you can just you could never explore all of the planets that the AI creates. Like, it would take a billion years to explore.
No Man's Sky is like
game.
theoretically infinite. This actually has a limit. It has 1,000 planets.
Okay.
So you can visit them all if you're bored.
Because I'm a completionist, I like to see everything, so I might never leave that game and die of hunger.
But yeah, I really do recommend checking it out. It has got a style that's been described as NASA punk. So kind of instead of cyberpunk or something like that. It's got a cool visual style. It looks to be a massive game.
Are you tired, Steven?
No, I'm enjoying this. I got my ship in. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. No, that's
been working on that.
We're well over time. Yeah. So thank you, everyone. We have been the Podcast Wreckers. You can find us online at podcastwreckers.com or on your podcast platform of choice or in your food. Thank you to our hosts, Stephen Thomas, Matlock Zumsteg, Joe Kroll, and myself, Adam Aragon. We're the Podcast Wreckers. Good day, goodbye, good hell.